What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? Boy, actually, I don't. What do I was recording something earlier and I was having the pop filter on, but we don't need no stinking pop filter. What's going on, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children's, dogs, and cats? Season 6 is upon us, and I am freaking excited. Hola, que paso? Welcome in. Good morning, good afternoon, and possibly good night, depending on where you're at. Oh man, it's big, it's huge. Embark has let us know really a lot of what's going on leading up to today in terms of the new weapons, Las Vegas 2.0, getting new maps for PowerShift, TDM being a permanent fixture. We've got sponsor announcements. We've got the whole nine. So we know a lot, but we don't know the details. And that's what we're going to dive into today. So without further ado, let's go look at the patch notes. Welcome to Season 6. Ladies and gentlemen, it's going to be a big... How many times have I said ladies and gentlemen? I've said that a lot. I've said ladies and gentlemen quite a bit. Now, let's go take a look at what they have to say here. A lot of the beginning stuff is most of kind of re-announcing what we already know, but to the sound of a minigun revving into action and to the thunderous roar of the viewers watching from the stands, we are proud to announce that the wait is over. The finals Season 6 has arrived. The season brings new ways to compete, an updated arsenal to utilize when impressing the sponsors, and more ways than ever to climb the ranks. Whether you're here for the chaotic coin bath or let me start that over. Whether you're here for the chaotic coin bath of our expanded game modes or more arenas than ever before, the striking new battle pass, or even new weapons, yes, that is an assault rifle with a double magazine, this season is packed with style, action, and generational plays to be made. All right, let's go continue on here. They talk about Team Deathmatch is a permanent fixture for now. And here's the new maps. We've got Fortune Stadium, Seoul, Sis Horizon, Las Vegas, and Kyoto. And man, I'm telling you, PowerShift on Las Vegas is so nice. And Bernal, it was cool, it was quick, it's been fun. Now, the quick play progression, so there's going to be a progression really, or pretty much for everything now. So they've got Quick Cash, Team Deathmatch, Terminal Attack, PowerShift, and you can earn basically points that increase your level with each of those playlists. And it says that you'll get some unique rewards when you do so. So that's pretty cool. Every playlist now is going to have a progression system. Of course, we've seen it before. We'll see it again here. The Las Vegas Stadium, which is Las Vegas 2.0. It's clean, it's crisp, and man, it looks so freaking good. Then, last but not least, we've got the new weapons. The light ARN-220, the medium CB01 repeater, and the minigun 134, the M134. But we want to know how those things actually load up on the stat sheet, so that's what we're going to get to soon. They talk about the battle pass. Of course, we know what sponsors that are out there, the Ospus, the Alpha Acta, and the Ingimo. They've got things like new skin or costume customization, so you can like load up costumes. They've got like a heavy build that you can now put on, new practice range, new private matches in spectator mode. They've got streamer mode. Of course, I just said the new body types, a soundtrack built for champions, and so much more. Now, let's get to what you all came for and break down these patch notes. All right. APS turret gets a little bit of a buff. They decreased the damage taken per projectile from 40% to 31.25% of total health, meaning that a full health APS can now block 4 projectiles as opposed to 3 projectiles. And basically what they said is the last time they nerfed this, it really wasn't being picked very often, so they buffed the APS turret in hopes that it gets picked a little more. The Data Reshaper got a bit of a nerf, which I thought to be kind of interesting. They decreased the ammo count from 3 down to 2. And what they said here is that they felt like the Data Reshaper after the last buff was so strong, particularly against particularly against turrets based on the respawn time or the cooldown time for the turret, that they wanted to nerf the Data Reshaper. So they did. Then we've got a glitch grenade buff. They decreased the fuse time from 1.8 seconds to 1.5 seconds in the spirit of making the glitch grenade feel more responsive when you throw it. So That's kind of cool. Now, the Gravity Vortex got a pretty nice buff here. It got a really hard look, and they increased the maximum duration of the vortex from 8 seconds to 10 seconds. They increased the minimum duration of the vortex from 5 seconds to 7 seconds. They decreased the throw velocity from 16.5 to 15 milliseconds, and then they increased the projectile gravity modifier from 1 to 1.7, giving the projectile a steeper arc. Now, the dev note says, we felt the gravity vortex has been a little underused versus what they would have expected. These changes aim to buff its impact slightly while avoiding scenarios where it might be thrown as a longer range grenade rather than to be used as a trap. So I'm kind of for it. Honestly, I thought the vortex was cool and pretty useful, and if you placed it right, it definitely was a great disrupt for the cash out. So we'll see how this comes out in the field. Now, the tracking dart, the infamous tracking dart, got a little bit of a buff. They increased the tracking duration on targets from 10 seconds to 13 seconds, and the dev note says that they hope that it gets picked a little more. All right, now we've got some arena canister changes. Explosive canisters. They reduce the fuse time of the explosive canister so they will detonate sooner and more reliably. The dev note says the previous fuse time for the explosive canisters was set a long time ago, probably back when we had nukes, and in part because the canister did more damage back then, and also because we'd like some of the random impact we'd get from the bouncing off of walls. Today, though, with their lower damage, we feel a longer fuse time was hurting its usability and reliability just a little bit, especially for new players. So that got a little bit of a look. Now, specializations. Cloaking device got some changes here, folks. Increased cloak max blend from 1.5 to 1.75, making cloaking players slightly more visible to others. They increased the delay before transitioning into cloak from 0 to 0.5, increasing the time it takes for a player to disappear. So these are basically nerfs to cloak. They increased the first-person cloak multiplier from 0.9 to 1.0, meaning the cloaking effect in first-person view will be more accurately represent the cloaking effect seen in the third-person view. The dev note says, we know that some players find the cloaking device very frustrating to face since we increased its duration, but we really like the previous changes to it pushed it more towards giving players a sneaky playstyle, rather than using it for straight-up evasion and combat. To try and address their player feedback while retaining this playstyle, these changes have been made to make cloak players more visible when moving, hopefully nudging them to be even more of a hide-and-seek camper than run and gun. So there's that. Now, the Winch Claw got a little bit of a buff. They increased the max range back from 10 meters up to 12 meters. They added scaling of the stun duration versus weapon and gadgets based on the distance to the target player, meaning long-range hooks stun for slightly longer than its short-range hits. They increased the maximum weapon gadget stun duration on targets hit at maximum range from 0.55 seconds to 6.5 seconds, and they added minimum weapon gadget stun duration on targets hit at a minimum range of 3 meters or less of 0.3 seconds. Now, what it says here is that the Winch Claw stun effect changes described here impact weapons and gadgets only. Specializations are always impacted for a fixed stun duration, which is at a different value. That value is unchanged and is what it was before. The note says, we feel that the last round of changes or nerfs made to the Winch Claw made it a little bit too aggressive and limited the use cases for it. As a result, they buffed the range capability this time around. To offset this, they've made a micro stun duration for the Winch Claw more dynamic, adjusting its duration based on the range of pull, which is kind of interesting. We think this will make the Claw slightly less frustrating for players that are hit by it, while at the same time buffing the range for the Winch Claw players. That's kind of neat. I actually think I like that. Now, here to the weapons. So the AKM got a little bit of a, I don't know if this is necessarily like a recoil buff, but it says that they improved the recoil interpolation, making the weapon feel slightly smoother when it recoils. This doesn't really change the recoil pattern, only the first-person camera movement, so it might just feel a little easier to shoot. But the dev note says it's purely just a quality of life change. Now, the CL40, they increased the size of the inner blast radius from 30 centimeters to 60 centimeters, meaning it should now be easier to do maximum damage. They increased the speed of the grenade projectile from 35 milliseconds to 42 milliseconds, and they decreased the projectile gravity modifier from 1 to 0.9, giving projectiles a slightly flatter arc, and the dev note says that the CL40 feels slightly underused compared to its other weapons, so this is a small buff in its effectiveness to try and make it more desirable. I mean, honestly, I think if you want to make the CL40 be picked a little more, I would reduce the self-damage modifier just a shade more, at least down to 1.0. So it's a 1-to-1 damage. That's just my take. So down to the dagger. They increased the damage of regular attacks from 50 up to 60, so that's a buff. And they increased the damage of non-backstab secondary attacks from 50 to 75. It's quite a buff. The damage with the backstab secondary attack remains at 320 damage, and the dev note says this small buff to base damage is intended to make the weapon's attacks other than the backstab slightly more viable in combat in certain situations. Now, on to the FAMAS. Got the same kind of AKM treatment. Improved recoil interpolation, making the weapon feel slightly smoother when it recoils. This does not change the underlying recoil pattern, just like it did with the AKM, just might feel like it's a little easier to use in terms of the visual recoil. All right, now, FCAR did get a recoil buff. They decreased the recoil intensity for bullets 5 to 7 in the firing sequence, making the weapon slightly more stable. Now, I actually immediately noticed this when I did the preview that they buffed the recoil pattern or made it a little bit easier to shoot. So now you can really beam with this thing. What the dev note says is this is a very small improvement to the FCAR's recoil pattern without changing the overall pattern, with the goal of making the weapon slightly more steady and easier to use in every firing sequence. All right. The KS-23, they decreased pump action duration from 0.82 seconds to 0.7 seconds, allowing the gun to fire faster. This change effectively increases the KS-23's fire rate from 73 RPM to 85 RPM. That's quite a bit faster. The dev note says this small buff is aimed at improving the usability and competitiveness of the weapon. So I know KS Rachel is going to be super excited about that. Now the LH1 got what almost looks like a pretty hard nerf. Decreased the damage from 46 all the way down to 40. The dev note says the LH1 has been very strong performer this season, even at close ranges, which they didn't fully intend. This change to its damage is aimed at addressing that and also bringing it more in line with the weapon's performance. So here's the thing. I've been told that it only takes one more bullet now than it used to in Season 5. And so if that's the case, it's still pretty good. I got to be honest, in hand, I did use this gun a little bit yesterday in the preview, and I still was shredding with it. It still felt pretty good. It did not feel like it was nerfed into the ground or anything, so we'll have to just do a little bit of testing in the practice range, the new and improved practice range. Now, the M11 got a little bit of a nerf here, although they say they increased the damage fall off max range from 15 meters to 17.5 meters, giving the weapon a slightly longer effective range. However, they decreased the damage fall-off multiplier from 0.62 to 0.52, meaning the weapon now does slightly less damage at range. The dev note says the M11 has been outperforming a number of long-range weapons, which was not intended. The small adjustments should make it slightly less effective at longer ranges, but increase the effective range. All right. Now to the M60. I'm glad they buffed this a little bit. It only got 1 point of damage per bullet. However, it went from 19 to 20, and it says that the damage fall off max range went from 32 meters to 35 meters, giving the weapon slightly longer effective range. And then, of course, they increased the damage fall off multiplier from 0.4 to 0.5. Again, meaning the damage now does slightly more damage at range. Or pardon me, the weapon does slightly more damage at range. The dev note says that compared to the Lewis gun and the Shack 50, the M60 has been underperforming quite a bit. These buffs aim to hopefully bring the weapon closer in its effectiveness. Now the Pike 5.56 got a nerf. They decreased the damage fall off minimum at range from 50 meters to 45 meters. They decreased the damage max fall off range from 55 to 50 meters. And then they decreased the damage fall off multiplier from 0.85 to 0.75. Now this basically reduces, or it's a nerf to all of the range effectiveness of the Pike. It says that the dev note, we want to bring the Pike back in line with the other weapons, and we feel these reductions to its effective range should help it achieve that. We've also noticed that it had strong visual recoil. Oh, that's right. They reduced some of the visual recoil when aiming down sights. So that was kind of like a buff, right? So there's that. They say it's going to feel nicer. Now, the SA-1216 did get a nerf. They decreased the pellet count from 13 to 12. Therefore, the damage per total shot went from 78 to 72. Okay. And then they increased the damage fall off minimum range from 10 meters to 12.5 meters and the damage maximum fall off range from 15 meters to 20 meters. Basically giving it's more effective at range now, but technically does less damage. The pellet pattern has been adjusted to move it towards a better close range roll after removal of one of those pellets. And they added a new element to the animation HUD that shows a feed module. And because you have 4 bullets per you have to cycle, right? So you get 4 SA-12 shots, then you have to cycle, and they're now showing you that on the HUD so you can keep better track of that. And in the dev note says here, the SA-1216 has been a strong performer for some time now, including being effective at slightly longer ranges than they intended. This change lowers overall damage potential of the weapon, especially at range, but to preserve some of the feel of the weapon, they slightly extended the effective range to somewhat offset the damage reduction. What? Okay, honey. All right. Now to the XP54. They increased the damage from 16 to 17. They increased the damage fall-off minimum range from 20 meters to 22.5 meters, giving the weapon a slightly longer effective range. They increased the damage fall-off range from 30 meters to 32.5 meters, giving the weapon a slightly longer effective range. And then they decreased the damage fall-off multiplier from 0.62 to 0.52, meaning the weapon now does slightly less damage at range. The dev note says, in Season 5, the XP54 underperformed compared to weapons like the M11. This change aims to address that. Now, I will tell you, I was absolutely shredding with the XP54. It felt really, really good. So I think that in Season 6, it's gonna be there. It's gonna shred. It might be even what they would call the meta. All right. Content and bug fixes. I'm not going to go through all of these. There's a bunch of things that they're just kind of like, again, quality of life fixes. None of these I felt like needed direct attention, but I'll put the link to these patch notes in the description so you can go check those out for yourself if you wanted to. But there's tons and tons and tons of like little things that they're really trying to fix and work on in terms of like just bugs, quality of life, etc., etc. The only other notable thing that I think was in this was that they did remove Bank It. So Bank It is no longer in Quick Play. And what they said is that unfortunately, Bank It is their least played mode and often struggles with a very small population of players due to its lack of popularity. Now that they've added TDM, basically that's going to replace what Bank It was. So doesn't mean it's gone forever. It just means that they're sunsetting it for now. And then in the ranked cash out, they did update the scoreboard and tournament overview screens in ranked tournaments. Previously shown information such as seeding of the other teams, other players' rank scores, and other players' gameplay scores such as combat scores will not be presented to players before or during the match. And so that's kind of intended to like get a little bit away from the grief meta, and we'll see how that works. So we already talked about some of the maps that are coming in here. Some of the other changes, I think the only other that might be it. That might be it for the other stuff that was kind of like worth talking about. A lot of this is again just big time quality of life stuff. We got a bunch of new sights. So the holographic sight, we have the looking glass, we have the adder reflex, and the compact reflector. Now we'll do a video about that. We'll take a look at all those, but man, all the weapons are getting all the sights now. You could put a red dot on XP54. It's freaking glorious. So that is something to look forward to. And last but certainly not least, one thing we can look at here is the security and anti-cheat. They are implementing hardware bans. So to all you cheaters out there, y'all better quit. Y'all better stop. Take that somewhere else, man. I don't understand what you get out of it. It cannot be fun. It is not rewarding. It totally and completely lacks integrity to cheat. So please take that shit somewhere else. Stop cheating. And I hope we see a lot of hardware bans going in Season 6 and moving forward. So thank you everybody for tuning in. I appreciate that. And now we'll turn it over to the chat. What's going on, everybody? What up, Al Leonis? Yeah. So, man, it's just so sad that watching this was not fun, honey. You absolutely didn't have to stay here though. Al says, wish I could be there for your debut stream, but I got responsibilities, unfortunately. Yeah, that's a bummer, man. I hate to hear it. Let's go full. We'll go full here. The craziest thing that just happened. What's that? So I'm going to be streaming a lot, like a lot. like I'm going to try to go for 10 hours or something like that, but we're going to be playing with Embark today. I've got like 10 codes to give away, so I'm going to be doing like a bunch of code giveaways that you can go redeem for like multi-bucks and things like that. And then we've got a huge thing that's going to happen today on stream. So absolutely turn in for stream. It's going to be crazy. It's going to be nasty. It's going to be fun. It's going to be wild. We'll be back on, I think probably, I got to button up some things. I might start streaming around 9 or 10 a.m. CST. And then I think the first Embark person I'm going to play with will be at noon CST. But yeah, what's going on, meth chemist? That is quite the Twitch name, buddy. All right, so I've got some more stuff to do to get ready for the stream, but guys, we will see you then. I appreciate everybody who tuned in for the patch notes review. I think they did a good job. The only thing that I'm not excited about is the SA-1216 nerf, and I think they maybe they nerfed the LH1 a little too much, but we'll just have to see. We'll have to test that out in game. Oh, it's you. It's Keto. No way. Okay, Keto. What's up, man? Hola. What's going on, Keto? Welcome in. So yeah, tune in later. We're doing giveaways. We're doing all kinds of stuff. It's going to be awesome. We'll see you then.